The Demon Within, Chapter 1. I felt my fear rising up as everyone else headed for the doors as well. I had no choice but to either hold back off and hope I wasn't late, or power through everyone and make it through first. I felt my hands shake as I held the door, seconds passing to make a decision. I closed my eyes, opening the door for the others and also hiding behind it. I sighed, opening my eyes and smiling at the few friends as I passed through. I flinched as I caught my reflection. I almost thought I saw a different demon, but the light must have been playing a trick on my eyes. I turned back into my human form as the last of the kids entered the school. Star and Winter walked in at last as well, holding back so they could walk with me. I smiled politely at them, motioning them to go in before me. I didn't mind staying behind all that much anyway. Hey. I flinched and turned around as the door closed behind me. A voice clear as day rang through my ears. It made me question my hearing as I saw no one behind me. "Oh, Winter, did you hear anyone?" I asked softly, slowly turning back to the group, checking over my shoulder once or twice before we walk off. "Nope," he said quickly before walking beside Star. I sigh and look at the ground, my hands in my pockets as I follow behind them. "Emma!" Ira said, running over, passing Star and Winter. "Oh, hey, how are you doing?" I say, my spirits lifted slightly as she smiles and walks beside me. "I'm doing good, but what about you? Have you talked to the school counselor yet?" I feel my muscles tighten, my body stiff at the reminder. She had told me to talk to the counselor for a small step into getting general therapy. She glares at me as she notices my silence. "I'll do it soon, I promise," I say, waving my hand dismissively. "Liar," the voice stubbornly calls out, my ears ringing and my hands tight in my pockets. Ira looks at me, her stern expression changing to concern as my face scrunches up in some sort of hatred, disgust, and pain. "I know you're going through a lot. Ava's death messed you all up," Ira said softly. I'd almost forgotten we told her. It was right to do so. She felt super paranoid about the missing piece in her memory. "But that's why I think talking to someone would help." I smiled at her, a polite smile even though it was laced with the obvious, "I really don't want to talk about this right now" look. I don't mean to push you, I just think it would be good to see you happy again, even just a little bit." I nodded, and then shook my head, taking a deep breath and smiling normally at her. "I will eventually, I promise. Now come on, we're gonna be late," I say, running past Star and Winter, getting to my locker first. I heard Star and Ira's soft laughter before they stood beside me in their lockers. Winter was still sharing a locker with Star to avoid the fact he wasn't even enrolled here. I grabbed my books, holding them in my arms tightly, my knuckles almost white, so I made sure they weren't going anywhere. I stared at the ground, my feet feeling oddly heavy as I walked to class. The path there etched into my memory, but my mind was no longer okay with it. It was the class we had when we got back from the forest. That first class where I had to face Ava again after she... I felt pain as my magic flared up, my eyes turning black, angry at myself. I wasn't able to focus in that class anymore. Thankfully, it was only science, so I didn't care much anyway. My feet dragged my body closer to that door, my head spinning slightly. I flinched as I saw a hand on my books. I held them even tighter to my chest, uncaring to the paper cutting into my hands on either side. I couldn't even look up to see who it was before my mind filled with the thoughts of Jason and Devin, even Clinton and Carl, the way they would pull the books out of my hands. I choked on a cry as my wings appeared, my tail quickly whipping side to side before I forced it around my leg, scared for the people around me. My horns were tight on my head, and a headache rang between my ears. I closed my eyes tightly, waiting impatiently for the thoughts to pass, for the feelings to calm down, and for the pain to subside. I heard Winter groan, disappointment and annoyance in his voice as it faded through the doorway. I couldn't help the tears that filled my eyes, and then the thoughts of everyone staring at me, judging me for the monster that I am, the monster I've become. My legs shook under me, my wings tucked tightly around myself, my hands felt damp, and the books felt like razors into my flesh. I bite my tongue, a habit I thought I was done with. It only sent me spiraling further, biting down harder, trying anything to keep myself grounded. My lungs are burning from the lack of air, my name rang through my ears as my friends screamed, but I just kept myself inside my head, battling the thoughts coming at me from all sides. Uncontrollable. I felt tears streaming down my face as that voice rang through. It seemed happy, an evil happy that reminded me of Ava, her foul voice. As the bell rang around me, it hurt more than the thoughts, the voices, and the screams. It seemed so loud. Everything was so loud. And as I opened my eyes, everything seemed bright. Tears blurred my vision, but it was all so bright. The cry I was choking on escaped my lungs as I felt a pain against my side as I collided with the lockers beside me, my legs finally giving out from under me as I was seconds from passing out. I probably would have if the pain didn't leave me gasping as it rang through my wings. It was quick, sudden, and then it was gone. The lack of pain seemed to bring me to my senses. I heard Star talking softly beside me, another pair of arms around me gently bringing me to the ground. Weak. I go back to biting my tongue, trying to force down the cries as the voice echoes. There was a pause from the noise around me. I opened my eyes to see the tile beneath my feet, my wings blocking out the rest of the world. It seemed to start fading away around me again. I could taste the bitterness of iron in my mouth as my teeth dug deeper into my tongue, my throat feeling sore and weak. The voices around me got louder, but I couldn't make out the words. They seemed angry, almost yelling at each other before another sharp pang rang through my body. Like a boulder falling on my spine as I leaned over, coughing on the pain, oxygen filling my lungs again and again as I continued to cough, trying to catch my breath. The air in my lungs seemed to finally do its job, numbing the pain that filled my body. The pain that filled my back slowly disappeared as I felt Star's healing magic run through my back. Everything seemed so quiet and then so loud. Ira repeatedly saying she was sorry beside me, Star calmly talking to me. Even that sounded so deafeningly loud. I groan as I bring my hands to my ears, remembering to breathe past the rest of the pain, the headache, the harmful thoughts. My books drop to the ground, making me flinch as they hit my legs. My eyes quickly go to the blood on my hands, fear filling my senses. My mind tricked me into thinking it was their blood. Everyone I've had to kill. Emma, come on, come back to Earth here. Star says softly, putting her hand towards mine. I flinch and quickly pull mine away, scared to hurt her, scared to put their blood on her hands. Hey, calm down, it's okay. She reached for my hand again, this time not budging when I moved away, holding mine and healing the cuts from the books and binders and paper. I glanced around as I let my wings down, my mind calming down. The thoughts, the noises, everything finally calmed down. I looked back at the dried blood, fading from my hands as my magic does its thing. It was mine. They weren't dead. They were in hell where they belonged. I looked at Ira. She had tears on her face and her hand was on my back, gently running over where the pain was before. Ira, she's okay, Star said softly. Ira gently lifted her hand off of my back. Should I go get someone? Ira said softly. The last thing she needs is more people around her, Star said stubbornly, still holding my hand. I'm fine, I say, groaning and pushing Star's hand away gently. I take a steady and calm breath, pushing the last of the thoughts away. I glance at the door, almost hoping to see Winter, but I know he had walked in before us. His annoyed groan played through my memory, and I sighed, turning into my human form. I glanced at Ira, who was still looking at my back. I looked at Star confused and hinting towards her. What's wrong with her? I say, smiling slightly, trying to brighten the mood. I ordered her to hit your back so you would breathe. I flinch as Star glares at me. You were getting so good at not holding your breath. What happened? Star quickly went from angry to a soft concern as she touched my shoulder. I chuckled nervously. Like hell I was going to tell her I was hearing voices which are making everything so much harder to deal with. I guess it just happened, I say, confused about the right words to use. I shake my hand and stand up, forcing everything back down and helping Ira up first to try and get her mind off of everything. It's like you forget I can heal or something, or that Star can, I say, nudging her shoulder softly. She looks up at me, wiping the last of her tears from her eyes. You scared me, she said stubbornly. I sighed as I helped Star up. Yeah. I scared myself too. Sorry, I say, softly picking up my books again, groaning at the bloodied corners of some of the pages. Some of the blood soaked into the pages and dried too quickly for the magic to erase. If it makes you feel better, I'll try to talk to the counselor after school, I say softly, giving a warm smile to Star and Ira. That sounds like a good idea. It's about time you get some therapy, Star said, nudging me and smiling. Yeah. I said I'll try, so don't think I'm making any promises. Little steps are good, Ira said softly, waiting for us and heading into class before her. She walked in behind before we all sat down in our seats. Winter immediately sat a little closer to Star and started asking small questions about the work. The teacher dismissed us coming in a little later. He was used to us coming in late with my panic attacks. I sit down, my body feeling heavy as I look up at the board, groaning quietly to myself, and I rested my head on my arms, already tired of this class, or school to begin with. Freak. That voice rang through my ears. It was just more reason to sleep, to shut it all out, let my mind rest. It'll be here when I wake up. I woke to a nudge against my shoulder. I could recognize a softness ever so slightly different from Star's. There was just a bit more force, and it was more jumpy and sudden. Before I could turn my head, I flinched as the bell rang, groaning and finally turning my head towards Ira as she smiled at me. Just 2 more classes, right? I say, standing up. Ira nods softly and grabs her books, frowning when she noticed my hands as I grabbed mine. My knuckles were white, and it didn't seem like anything to me, but the way she looked at me told me there was something about it that wasn't normal. I sighed and smiled at her. Come on, we're gonna be late for English, I say, walking away hoping she wouldn't start questioning it, or me. English was an easy class. I kept my mind busy and my thoughts at bay with writing. Lots and lots of writing. The past few days of this class I noticed her smiling when she looked over at my pages. We were writing short stories, fiction, non-fiction, science, anything, and it was so easy to get lost in the writing. As the words filled my mind before I could put them on paper, it seemed to shut every other noise out, every voice, every negative thought. It was nice to be able to find a quiet place in my mind. It's so nice to see her so calm after everything, at least in this moment, Star said softly. The scratching of pencils on either side of me stopped. Ira was on my right, whereas Star and Winter were on my left. I was lost in this world, writing as much as I could to block it out. Winter's voice growled out slightly. What's wrong with him? Ira said softly, her pencil making a small click on the table. Long story, Star said stubbornly. I heard Winter huff as Star elbowed his side. And I'd rather not talk about it, or hear it talked about. I could see Star move slightly, putting her hand on Winter's arm as he talked, a growl laced in his voice before Star comforted him. He sighed and went back to his work. I paused, not knowing where to go in my writing, staring at my page. It was filled enough that the teacher would be pleased, but I didn't want to stop. I had so many more thoughts, so many ideas, and I just didn't know where to continue from here. So I went back and corrected all my spelling, adding commas where they needed to be, correcting don't so it had an apostrophe, and eventually it was just me trying to buy time until that bell rang. My friend's whispering was drowned out by my pencil scratches, my thoughts as they swirled and then died down, just to be replaced by a nagging feeling deep in my gut as that voice in my head was just barely drowned out by my writing. Then the bell rang. I had never felt so happy to get closer to the end of the day, especially since this class was art. I could sit around, doodle, scratch my pencil around roughly shaded parts, and then just relax while still getting work done. Winter and Star had cooking class. I was sad I wasn't put in their class, but I had cooking tomorrow, so I wasn't worried. Ira was taking some extra science classes like a nerd, but I admired her talent. Now, if only I could get her to do my homework. I chuckled to myself as I started sketching, sitting by the window admiring the sun rays as they shone on my face. Eventually, I ran out of things to draw and sketch. I'd finished the project that was due tomorrow, yesterday, so I didn't have any homework here, and like hell I was going to spend this class catching up on other homework. I began playing with a small fireball in the palm of my hand, twirling it around my fingers and making it do circles around my pencil. It wasn't until about 3/4 through the class and about half an hour of playing with the fire that I noticed the redness to it. It was bright. Redder than my fire usually was, and instead of the deep red that I was used to that littered my demon form, it was bright, vibrant, and seemed to spark unnaturally towards the rest of my fire. I smiled, shrugging off the newly discovered change, thinking I could study it when I got home. But the voice seemed quiet now. It was about that time when it just seemed to leave me alone. I maybe get 3 hours a day, not consecutive, that there was silence from this foul voice. It was odd, like I should be happy, but it felt so Ominous. But as I looked up at the clock, I pushed the oddness away, happy that the bell was ringing soon, and since it usually lasted for an hour at a time, it made me happier thinking I could spend a little time after school to do whatever I wanted. I watched the clocks as the minute passed, getting up first when the bell finally rang, and booking it out of the classroom before anyone else could crowd the doors. I sit at my locker, taking my time to organize what I can before Star and Winter come over, smiling. "Hey, wanna go for pizza?" Star said, smiling and leaning down, poking me. "Winter already thought of a place. I pitched in $10, but we need 20. I laugh and grab my backpack out of my locker. "How about I give you 5 and we skip the bus?" I say, throwing my backpack over my shoulder and rummaging in my pockets for my change. "But it'll take forever to walk there," Star complained, leaning against her locker once she closed it. "Says the one who's gotten used to their demon form enough to fly in the playground," I say, snickering. She looks at me confused, a little taken back as well. "What? Too scared to fly downtown?" I chuckle and stretch, getting used to my backpack on my shoulders. I glance at Winter, who looked a little annoyed. I nudged his shoulder. "I'm sure Star would be happy to carry her little puppy," I teased. "Hey," Winter glared at me, his left eye flickering black as he growled slightly. I snicker as he glances between me and Star. "I'll fly," he said stubbornly. "Then it's settled. No buses today," I say, clapping my hands together and accidentally dropping the change from inside my hand. Star laughs as she helps me pick up the change. "We should plan a whole picnic one of these days. Get everyone, even from the old town," Star said as I handed her the change to add to her collection. "It would be nice to meet some of the kids from the old town. I might even see some old friends," Winter said softly, looking into nowhere as he thought. He chuckled to himself. "On second thought, I think it's better if people don't remember who I am. Or mostly my father." I looked at Winter empathetically as he smiled softly at Star. We all walked out of the school, quickly turning into our demon forms and heading off towards downtown. The skyscrapers were tall enough that most of the time we were hidden. It was only getting there that I was worried about, and thankfully my mind was quiet, so it was just a matter of time. For now, everything was peaceful. As we flew, I traveled a little behind, letting them talk in peace as I watched the people move like ants beneath us. The humid air fills my lungs slowly and then disappears as I breathe out. I smiled at them as they flew with such ease. It was nice seeing them so free, even just happy together. I knew it was a weight lifted off my chest with Winter around. He promised to protect Star, and I trust he will, from any threat. I look back down at the ground below us as I fly, taking the time to relax a little before we got downtown. Minutes passed, and the wind that blew through my hair eased my mind. I could feel the calmness of my mind. I could also feel the disrupting pain that usually happened before that voice came back to mess with me, but thankfully, I see the corner we usually get dropped off at from the buses. We were nearly there. "Let's land now," Star said, smiling over her shoulder at me as she started flying towards the ground. I nodded, thankful that we were done flying for now. "That felt amazing," Star laughed as she landed, hopping slightly and turning to face Winter and me as we landed. I nod softly as Winter stays silent, looking at his wings in a weird way. An almost pained expression, but I could see a hint of pride in his eyes. I calmly walked towards Star to catch up to them. Winter was already beside her. "We should do it more often," I mumbled, a little confused about my own words. Star looked at me, a little confused but optimistic. Her smile was bright, and her eyes showed just as bright. "It would be a good idea to get used to these forms, to get used to ourselves, especially in public." Winter didn't look amused at my words, but the idea of Star's club ran through my head. A smile formed on my face as I looked between the two. "And think of Star's club at the school. I heard it's getting a lot of popularity really quickly since there's a chance of another divine being coming around. Good ones." I saw Star smile wider as we walked. She was walking backwards, using her tail against the pavement to guide her as she walked against the wall. I thought it was neat how she was learning. She was so open to embracing this new form. I shook my head and smiled at Star as she started talking. "Yeah, there was talk that some news reporters came to the school yesterday. They might be talking about the club. Talking about how we're good," Star said, her eyes lighting up. I cringed at the thought of being on the news, and Winter seemed just as amused by the idea as I was, but he sighed and smiled at Star. "That's amazing. Who knows what kind of people we could meet," I say, trying to seem optimistic. I could see his resentment for the idea, but I think it's better to ignore it for the moment. Star seems happy right now. I don't want her to worry about all the bad demons and angels. I smiled up at the sky, thankful for what we have now. thankful that at this moment, at least, we're okay. Oh hey, we're here! Star flinches as her tail hits a cement step. It didn't surprise me that she recognized it. It was the only store on this block with steps before it. $15 to go towards pizza. What type should we get? She opens the door for us quickly, running in front of us, smiling wide as she notices the empty pizza shop. It was small and roomy. Red fabric lined the booths against the windows, and the soft vinyl flooring tiles were worn from the white that they were to an almost gray with the years of use. She spun in a circle, smiling. Look, no one to gawk or point fingers. We can have a relaxed dinner today. Winter groaned and pointed towards the cashier, who was staring wide-eyed at Star. I laugh as I notice and shake my head. Hello there, I say politely. I looked between Star, who was looking down with her face red, and Winter, who was smiling, his cheeks a little red as he looked at Star. Are we able to get a pizza with 3 different toppings? Like, a third is one thing, and... Oh, yes, of course, she said, smiling and waving her hands in front of her. I'm sure the chef wouldn't mind that. He was talking about someone that seems like you. Regular, I think? I groaned under my breath. I knew Star went here a lot, but I didn't think she was a regular now. Star tilted her head up. Why? She said softly. That news report about the school. I mean, I can only assume it was you guys. With, She gestures to our wings and such. I snicker and roll my eyes. Looks like you did make the news, I say, smiling at Star. Her eyes light up, smiling wide. Really? Really? What did it say? I laugh as Star puts her hands on the counter, eager for her answers. Well, you'll have to talk to him. He's the one who watched it. Before we could continue talking, she yelled for him, and then came the heavy footsteps that were familiar for this shop. The chef, who always seemed to be working when we came in to the till with a smile on his face. Well, hello. I'm glad to see that even though you're famous, you're still coming to my pizza shop. And with a new face, how nice of you. He glances at Winter and then back at Star. What did it say? What did it say? She jumped up and down slightly as the man laughed. It was just a news broadcast that a student in the school was doing something no one else thought of, with proof of such creatures nonetheless. I saw Star smile, but my happy thoughts were interrupted by the mocking voice shining its dark light onto my thoughts. Creatures. I shake my head, my tail twitching slightly. I'm glad you're trying so hard, little one. I've known many who are afraid of people like you, even with a kind soul like yours. Winter smiles softly as he looks at Star. I shake my head, happy about the conversation, but needing something more to drown out the thoughts. Well, we are here like every other time. Pizza, I say, holding up the money. Oh, yes! She looks at Winter, taken back a little by his warm smile as she catches him staring. Not before they both look away in an awkward laugh. What do you like? Star said, softly, looking back over the menu. I'm not sure, but meat lovers type looks pretty good, Winter says softly. Could we get in thirds? 1 part chicken and spinach. Winter looked at me, almost disgusted for a moment. 2nd part Hawaiian. I saw Star smile softly. And the last part, I looked at Winter for confirmation as I speak. Meat lovers. He nods softly and the cook laughs. Always giving me a run for my money, aren't you guys? He turns and walks back into the kitchen smiling. You know you love us, Star said laughing. Winter looked a little confused as I was still holding the $15. He looks back at the menu and then back at us. How much does it cost when you order like that? He says softly. Star turns and starts walking towards a booth. About 15 for anyone who isn't us, I laugh softly. He always charges us less since he somehow knew our dad, but we always tip him extra, so it still turns out to be $15. I say, following Star. She nods softly and sits down. I sit across from her, and she pats the space beside her for Winter to sit next to her. He smiles as he does so. It took about 20 minutes for the pizza to finish cooking. We didn't mind waiting, and eventually, after about half an hour, we were done eating. Star had paid, and we were headed out the door waving goodbye. I hope that club of yours goes well. Send my regards to your mother. We nod, and the door closes behind us. Star jumps around, smiling, her tail flicked from side to side, her smile wide and her eyes lighting up brightly. I shook my head, laughing softly. My tail just dragged behind me, and my wings were tight at my sides. Winter was walking calmly beside her. His wings were tight at his sides, but his tail was coiled up just above the ground. I smiled at us. We were something new, and ignoring the stares of the many people around us, it was nice to just be ourselves. I flinch as I feel my tail get grabbed, a tug sending a wave of pain through my spine. my wings flinching outwards slightly. I hear a gasp from behind me, one of shock which gets the attention of Star and Winter, who hadn't noticed I stopped. So I looked behind me, snickering slightly, and Winter seemed to only snicker at the pain I was in. "It's real," the small voice from behind me whispered. I turned slightly, and as I did, he let go and backed up slightly. I didn't see any fear in his eyes, more like amazement. I smiled politely at him as I crouched down in front of him. Before I could open my mouth, he quickly spoke up. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't think it was real." I snickered and put my hand on his shoulder. Hey, it's okay. I'm okay," I said, reassuring him as tears came to his eyes. He flinched as he looked at me. His eyes shone brightly, much like stars, and I couldn't help but notice the odd grays that were the color of his eyes. They almost seemed like two different shades, as if he took my eyes and desaturated them completely. I shake my head and smile at him. "Where are your parents? Do you need help finding them?" "No, my mom is just in the store. I was watching my little brother." He points over my shoulder, past Winter and Star, at a young boy kicking a few pebbles by the edge of the road. He was only a few feet away and smiling as he kicked a pebble a little closer to us before it bounced off the sidewalk and onto the road. I sighed softly. "Do you want us to wait with you and your brother until your mother gets back, then?" Star said softly, also crouching down beside me. He shook his head, smiling. No, we'll be okay. Do you think I could watch you guys fly, though?" He smiled wide and took a step back, eagerly waiting for us to take off. I laugh and look at Star. "It wouldn't hurt to take off a block or two sooner than we planned," I say softly. Star and Winter both nodded as well. "And sure, little one," I say, standing up, my wings stretching out slightly. My words seemed to fall short as I spoke. "Do you want your brother to see, too?" I felt my words weaken in my lungs as I turned to see his brother kick another rock across the road. He laughed and ran towards it without looking, and I could see the car that was racing towards the intersection continue at the speed it was going. There were no brakes, no movement from the driver. I felt my feet ground myself as my wings burst outwards and gravel flying under my feet as I kicked off the ground. I could see the little kid's brother continue to run towards the pebble he kicked. I could see the speeding car get closer to us. I felt my wings tighten as I slammed them downwards to propel myself forward. I wrapped my arms around the kid's brother, grabbing him securely and wrapping my wings around us, as I feel myself fall short of my jump. My feet slid on the asphalt, but I made sure to hold him safe. I attempted to jump one last time, just getting enough out of the way if I was lucky. I could hear Star scream as I ran. I didn't care, but now, between the horn blaring as it came closer, and then as it passed, and as the pain arose in my ankle, all I could hear was my heartbeat in my ears as I held the kid close. Landing on my back and sliding on the pavement, road rash created pain along the leather of my wings, and my ankle felt warm along with the pain. The kid in my arms was shaking, breathing steady but fast, whimpering slightly. I lay there for a moment, assessing my injuries mentally. My ankle felt broken, and my wings didn't seem broken, but as I attempted to sit up, I could feel a bone poking into my shoulder. I groaned and sat up anyway. The loud noises around me slowly came to my ears, starting as small whispers before they were blaring. Star was yelling at me. The kid was crying, and his brother was yelling at him. There were a few passerbys who were talking amongst themselves, asking Star and Winter if we needed to call anybody. I unwrapped my wings from around the boy, looking at him concerned, keeping my wings to my sides and wrapping my tail around my ankle, making sure no one saw the blood. "Are you okay?" I say softly. He nods as tears continue streaming down his face. "Are you sure?" He nods again. I sigh and sit him down. "Emma!" I flinch as Star yells again, her words finally reaching my ears as she stares at me. "I'm okay," I mumble, focusing my healing on my wings before anything else. I could deal with limping for a second. I sit on the curb to get out of traffic, kind of crawling over to it not to put any pressure on my ankle. She looked at me, anger on her face as she crossed her arms. "I'll be okay," I reassure her as I look towards the kids. "Andra, what were you thinking?" The boy ran up to his brother, angry but worried. I shoo Star away and heal my ankle. Jack, I'm sorry," Andra said, still crying. I see a woman run out of the store from across the road, glancing both ways before running towards us, fear in her eyes as she runs towards the boys. "Oh heavens, are you two all right? What were you thinking? Both of you! I asked you to keep an eye on your brother for 1 second! What happened?" I glance between my group, looking at Star and Winter with a look that asks, should we stick around? I'm sorry, Mommy, but they're more demons, and they're nice, and they saved Andra. I flinched as Jack stood up straight towards his mother, a frown on his face despite his strong demeanor. The mother flinches as she looks towards me. She looked hesitant, which was to be expected. Everyone was still hesitant towards us. She outstretches her shaking hand with a warm smile. They aren't bad like you said, he mumbled just as I reached up to shake her hand. I flinch as I see her eyes widen, looking at me with a fearful, apologetic look. I chuckle and shake my head. Thank you so much for saving my son. I am so sorry, she says, holding my hand tightly in both of hers. I gently pulled my hand away, smiling softly. Hey, it's okay, I say softly, not really knowing what else to say. She looks towards her sons, her back straightening up as she glares at them. Now that I am done shopping, both of you are grounded when we get home. You for running across the street without looking and disrupting these kind people's days. I smile at her words. And you for running up to people you don't know all willy-nilly. And for leaving your brother's side. I shake my head, stretching my wings out, turning away from the mother and her sons before flinching and turning around again. Hey, wait, I say quickly. Star snickered at me and shook her head as if reading my mind. He wanted to see us fly. I understand you want to get home, but I don't mind doing this small thing for him. We're about to leave anyway. Please, Mom, please, Jack said, giving his mother puppy dog eyes. She sighed and nodded towards me. They saved Andre. You gotta trust them at least once. His mother cringes at him for the second time, makes it apparent that the mother is against us. But it was nice to see her force a smile and nod once again. I walked up to her, smiling softly. I do hope Andra is okay. They both seem like good souls, I say softly. I hope that you can see that we only want the best for humanity. There are still bad people out there, just like there are bad humans, but I hope you can learn to trust demons, or at least us. She smiles. I do. You saved my son, and I will be forever grateful for it. I promise I won't be so judgmental of your kind anymore. Don't get me wrong. There are still many bad demons out there, so don't let your guard down, but just know that I motion towards Winter, Star, and we will do anything to prove that not all demons are bad, I said, smiling softly. Thank you, she said softly, her son's hand in hers. I nod and turn away, rejoining our group, and then taking off. It's so cool, Jack yelled. I glanced at Star, who was laughing. You are so much like Dad, Star said softly, speeding up so that she could fly alongside Winter. It made me happy that she spoke, and just knowing that I was doing something right, but it made me happier that I was following in our father's footsteps, doing what I wanted to all along.